The forest floor crackled as Lyra scurried through the undergrowth, her antennae twitching in all directions. Her carapace shimmered in the dim light, camouflaging her with the vibrant greens and reds of the alien flora surrounding her. She had been foraging with her hive on this unfamiliar world, but a sudden earthquake had scattered them, leaving her stranded, vulnerable, and painfully aware of the dangers lurking nearby. Click, click. Her mandibles clicked nervously as she scanned the unfamiliar terrain, hoping for any sign of her hive's pheromone trail. But instead, the air was thick with unfamiliar scents, strong, metallic, and strange. She couldn't see them yet, but she sensed large, lumbering figures moving nearby, and her instincts screamed at her to run. She ducked into a thicket of ferns, her heart racing, hoping the sounds would fade. But they only grew louder. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over her. She froze, her eyes widening as she caught sight of the towering figure above. It was a human, clad in a sleek, armored suit, its face partially obscured by a visor. She had heard stories of these beings from her hive elders, massive, hairless creatures with a voracious appetite and a tendency to crush anything in their path. Her instincts told her to stay hidden, to remain still. But the human had already seen her. "Oh, what do we have here?" The human's voice rumbled, distorted through the visor but unmistakably curious. Lyra's antenna flattened against her head, her mandibles clicking faster. Is this it? Is this how it ends? Her mind raced, imagining the human lifting her, inspecting her with its enormous, terrifyingly capable hands before devouring her as a mere snack. She tried to bolt, but the human's movements were fast. In one fluid motion, he crouched down and reached out. Lyra's world spun as she was lifted from the ground, her tiny claws flailing helplessly as she was hoisted high into the air. She braced herself, expecting the worst. But then, to her utter shock, the human's grip was gentle. "Hey, it's okay," the human said, his voice softening as he held her carefully in his gloved hand. You're not dangerous." "Are you?" Lyra stilled, her wide eyes blinking up at him, confused. "Not dangerous." The human shifted her gently in his palm, inspecting her without any hint of aggression. His fingers were strong but careful, holding her as one might hold a delicate artifact rather than prey. She felt a surge of conflicting emotions, fear, disbelief, and something she couldn't quite name. "Captain Stone, what is that thing?" Another voice called from behind him, a woman's voice. The human, whose name was apparently Captain Stone, looked over his shoulder at his fellow crew member. "I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem hostile. I think it might be lost." Lyra's antennae quivered as she absorbed this strange interaction. Lost? Did they understand her predicament? Could they sense her distress? Captain Stone crouched down, bringing her closer to eye level. She could now see his face through the visor, a rugged, weathered face with a surprisingly kind expression. His eyes, a deep shade of brown, studied her with genuine curiosity rather than the cold hunger she had feared. "There you are," he murmured softly. "Alone out here?" "Huh?" Lyra's antennae twitched as she hesitantly extended them, brushing them gently against the edge of his visor. It was a small gesture in her species, a signal of recognition or of tentative trust. She didn't know why she did it, only that something about the human's careful movements made her think he wouldn't hurt her. Captain Stone smiled, his rugged face softening as he watched her. "You're not afraid, are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, but Lyra could hear it, and something in her, some small, buried part of her that had long been afraid, wanted to believe him. The female crew member approached cautiously, peering at Lyra with a mixture of awe and hesitation. "Captain, are you sure that's safe? That thing could be dangerous." Stone chuckled softly. "She's fine. Lieutenant, she's more afraid of us than we are of her." The lieutenant's eyes softened, her earlier wariness fading as she watched the delicate alien creature in Stone's hand. Lyra felt a small sense of relief, sensing that this human, too, was beginning to see her differently. Maybe, Maybe not all of them are dangerous, Lyra thought, surprised by her own courage. Stone reached out and touched his fingers gently to her side, almost like a comforting gesture. She didn't recoil. Instead, she found herself pressing lightly against his fingers, a strange warmth filling her. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't expected, connection. But their peaceful moment was abruptly interrupted by the crackle of Stone's comm. Captain Stone, we've detected seismic activity in this sector. Recommend immediate evacuation. Stone glanced down at her, his expression darkening with worry. Looks like we're going to have to get out of here. Little one. But don't worry, I'm not leaving you behind. Lyra's heart raced as Stone slipped her carefully into a transparent pouch attached to his suit. Through it, she could see the vast alien landscape around them as he took off, running through the thick undergrowth with the lieutenant by his side. She didn't know where they were going or why he was taking her with him. But for the first time since she had been separated from her hive, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. As they ascended a ridge overlooking the vast expanse of forest below, Captain Stone and his crew spotted something on the horizon, a massive wave of energy rolling toward them, disrupting the terrain as it moved. Stone's grip tightened as he picked up his pace, racing against the oncoming surge. Lyra pressed herself against the side of the pouch, watching as the strange energy rippled closer. Whatever awaited them, she knew this human was not what she had feared. For reasons she couldn't yet understand, he had chosen to protect her. And as she clung to his side, she felt the faint stirrings of trust. Captain Stone slowed his pace as they reached a sheltered ridge overlooking the dense alien forest below. The strange seismic activity from earlier seemed to have calmed for the moment, but the air was thick with tension. The sky above them was shrouded in deep shades of indigo, illuminated only by faint glimmers of starlight and the occasional spark from his gear. Lyra shifted uneasily inside the transparent pouch on Stone's suit. She wasn't used to the closeness of other beings, let alone a creature as massive and unfamiliar as this human. And yet, something about his steady presence calmed her. Through the pouch, she could see his face, marked with lines of experience and softened by the kindness he had shown her. Captain Stone looked down at her, his eyes warm. "I bet you have no idea what I'm saying," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "But we're safe here, for now." Lyra tilted her head, her antennae twitching as she tried to understand his tone. Although his words were foreign, his gentle voice and reassuring gestures spoke to her in ways language couldn't. He unzipped the pouch carefully and lifted her out, setting her on the ground beside him. She hesitated, her instinct to run, held back only by the curiosity that had been growing inside her since he first lifted her from the forest floor. The lieutenant, watching them both with a mixture of awe and caution, stepped forward. "Captain, we should be heading back to camp. Command will want to know what caused that seismic event." Stone nodded, though his gaze remained fixed on Lyra. "Agreed, but I think our little friend here might have more answers than we realize." He turned back to Lyra and said softly, "Do you understand me? Can you help us understand what's going on?" Lyra tilted her head, catching his eyes with her own reflective gaze. Then, in a slow and cautious movement, she reached out with one of her slender limbs, touching a button on the datapad he held. Stone raised an eyebrow, intrigued, as the screen blinked to life, displaying an intricate map of the planet's topography. To his surprise, Lyra pointed her antennae toward a glowing green patch on the map, a forest sector he hadn't noticed before. "Is that where you came from?" he asked softly, holding the datapad closer. Lyra tapped her antennae against the image again, her eyes shifting to look up at him, as if confirming his question. Though she didn't fully understand the symbols on the screen, she recognized her hive's territory from the patterns on the map. It was as close as she could come to guiding him back to her people. The lieutenant's voice cut in, skeptical. "Captain, are we seriously letting this creature lead us?" Stone turned to her, his expression resolute. "She's not just a creature. I think she's intelligent. And if she knows something about the events here, we're better off following her lead." Lyra felt a small surge of pride at his words. No one from another species had ever considered her people's intelligence. Most simply saw them as pests to be avoided or feared. But this human, he saw her differently. It was as though he understood her in ways others hadn't. They packed up quickly and began their trek through the dense forest, with Lyra guiding them as best she could. Captain Stone stayed close to her, his movements cautious but confident, while the lieutenant trailed behind, her wariness of the alien creature clear in her every glance. The air was thick with the scent of earth and strange flora, and their path was lit only by the faint glow of bioluminescent plants that dotted the forest floor. As they walked, Lyra felt the need to communicate more, to explain the urgency of her guidance. She paused and brushed her antennae against Stone's hand, then extended one of her slender limbs to touch the screen on his arm-mounted device, selecting an icon that activated an emergency signal. The screen emitted a low hum, displaying a field of electromagnetic readings, including strange, unsteady spikes that hadn't been there before. Stone frowned as he studied the data. Seismic and magnetic anomalies. It's like the planet's core is unstable. Lyra tapped the screen near one of the largest spikes, gesturing urgently. Though her gestures were basic, Stone sensed that she was warning him. Something had disturbed her world's natural harmony, and if it wasn't addressed, more seismic events could threaten not only her hive, but the entire ecosystem. What could cause this? The lieutenant asked, peering over his shoulder. Stone glanced at Lyra. If these readings are accurate, it's not natural. It could be linked to a resource extraction operation or an underground disturbance, something that's altering the planet's magnetic fields. The lieutenant raised an eyebrow. Human mining crews? Possibly, Stone replied. Or, he hesitated, looking down at Lyra. It could be something even older, something this species might know how to fix, but has been disrupted by our presence. They continued through the forest, Lyra occasionally pausing to guide them around patches of unstable ground or hazardous vegetation. Every so often, she would glance back at Stone, reassured by his calm presence, his readiness to trust her knowledge, even though they came from vastly different worlds. After an hour of trekking, they reached a massive, ancient structure covered in vines and alien moss, partially hidden by the trees. It was a monolithic structure, almost like a temple, with intricate carvings that glowed faintly, with the same bioluminescence as the forest plants. Stone approached it, eyes wide with amazement. This must be what's causing the disturbances. It's old, ancient tech, but alive with some kind of energy. Lyra moved forward, extending her antennae toward the carvings. The intricate symbols were familiar to her, marks left by her ancestors to ward off intruders and to communicate with the energy systems beneath the planet's surface. Her species had long maintained a delicate balance with these forces, using their knowledge to protect the environment. Stone watched in silence as Lyra interacted with the carvings, her movements precise and reverent. She touched certain symbols, and with each touch, the structure emitted a soft hum, resonating with a warmth that felt almost alive. It was as though the planet itself was responding to her presence. This is incredible, Stone murmured. Your people, they're connected to this planet in ways we don't understand. The lieutenant, her initial skepticism fading, looked at Lyra with newfound respect. She's trying to fix it, isn't she? Stone nodded. Yes. And we need to help her. Lyra stepped back, turning her gaze to Stone with a sense of urgency. She gestured toward a series of glyphs near the structure's base, indicating that these markings held the key to stabilizing the core. She knew the process, but it would require precision, energy, and the support of someone strong enough to handle the fluctuations in the planet's energy. Stone understood. All right, he said, rolling up his sleeves. Tell me what to do. Lyra hesitated, then reached out to guide his hand toward the glyphs. She sensed his trust, his willingness to risk himself for a world he didn't fully understand. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a sense of kinship with someone outside her own species. As they worked together, pressing symbols and tracing lines on the ancient structure, the energy beneath the ground began to calm. The tremors eased, and the air around them grew still. The planet responded to their efforts, stabilizing under the combined influence of human strength and Miriaki knowledge. When they finally finished, Stone looked down at Lyra, breathing heavily but with a triumphant smile. "We did it," he said softly, his voice filled with awe and gratitude. Lyra chirped in response, her antennae quivering with relief. They had bridged a divide between their worlds, forging a bond that went beyond species and language. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the forest, Lyra realized that she no longer feared this human. She had been right to trust him. And in turn, he had shown her a world she never knew could exist, a world of mutual respect and unity, even in the face of vast differences. The forest fell silent as Lyra and Captain Stone completed their work at the ancient structure, stabilizing the seismic disturbances. Just as they breathed a sigh of relief, a distant rumble shattered the calm. Human mining vehicles were advancing rapidly, engines roaring as they approached the structure. Lyra's heart raced. These machines threatened the delicate balance they'd just restored. Stone's expression hardened. "No," he muttered, clenching his fists. "They'll destroy everything." He tapped his comm. "Command, stop the mining operation. The ecosystem here is incredibly fragile," a cold voice replied. "That's not your call." "Captain, proceed with the extraction." Stone turned off the comm, looking down at Lyra. Her gazed back at him with pleading eyes. She gestured urgently to the ancient control panel nearby, signaling one last desperate attempt to save her world. If they could activate the dormant energy field beneath the structure, it could form a protective barrier, keeping the machinery out. With Lyra's guidance, Stone pressed his hand to the carvings, activating a sequence of symbols. The structure began to hum, and moments later, a powerful blue energy shield radiated outward, encasing the valley in a shimmering dome. The advancing mining vehicles sputtered to a halt, their circuits disabled by the field's interference. The lieutenant's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, what did you do?" "The equipment's down." Stone smirked. "Securing the ecosystem." "Stand by." Lyra watched, her heart swelling with gratitude as her home was safeguarded. But just then, the ground trembled again. The ancient structure was struggling to sustain the field. Cracks splintered along its walls, and Stone quickly lifted Lyra, sprinting toward a nearby tunnel that led away from the structure. They emerged just as the building collapsed, sending a wave of dust and debris across the forest. The energy field flickered but then stabilized, forming a permanent barrier around the valley. Stone set Lyra down, both of them catching their breath as they surveyed the protected land. "You did it." "Lyra," Stone said, his voice soft with awe. Lyra chirped in response, her antennae brushing against his hand in gratitude. She had saved her world, and in doing so, found a true ally. Together, they turned and walked away from the dome, their bond stronger than ever, ready to face whatever lay ahead.
When a human says challenge accepted, entire galactic star systems activate their shields. Let's start the story. Please like the video and subscribe. Comment if you have a challenge accepted story. Chapter 1: The Galactic Incident. Captain Leo Ward strolled into the Grand Hall of the Interstellar Accord Assembly, a massive galactic summit where diplomats, generals, and representatives from all corners of the galaxy gathered. The room hummed with alien voices, some deep and rumbling, others high-pitched and melodic, all melding into a cacophony of diplomacy. Yet, as soon as Leo entered, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, cargo shorts, and flip-flops, the noise level dropped, and hundreds of eyes and optical sensors turned to him. The human grinned, taking in the awestruck stares, even giving a mock salute to an especially stern alien wearing layers of ornate robes and gleaming jewelry. "I'd say don't be shy, but it looks like you already are," he quipped, his relaxed, casual tone cutting through the tension. Ambassador Raquel of the Eurethans, a formidable species with scaled skin and eyes like polished steel, fixed him with a sharp gaze. Known for his no-nonsense attitude, Raquel had a reputation as one of the galaxy's strictest enforcers of protocol. He wasn't impressed by Leo's unconventional appearance. "Captain Ward?" Raquel's voice was low, a growl that resonated through the hall. "Do you humans ever take anything seriously?" Leo only smiled wider, shrugging. Depends on the situation. But I thought I'd dress up for the occasion, he replied, gesturing to his outfit. A few murmurs of disbelief echoed through the hall as the other delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Raquel folded his arms. Perhaps you think yourself clever? Human. But your kind's arrogance will be your undoing. Leo chuckled. Arrogance? We call it confidence. Besides, when humanity's put to the test, we always come through. Another alien representative, Minister Zira of the Zirites, a tall, graceful being with luminescent skin, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. I've heard humans boast of this resilience, but it's nothing more than reckless bravado. Leo's grin turned into a smirk. Oh, really? Care to test that theory? Raquel's scales rippled in irritation. He was tired of human bravado, tired of hearing tales of their bravery and stubborn persistence. Fine. Human, I challenge you to navigate the trellis vortex and retrieve a cruiser stranded in its depths. It's a feat even the most advanced pilots have failed to accomplish. Leo's eyes gleamed with excitement. Challenge accepted. The words hung in the air, and a ripple of murmurs spread across the room. Leo noticed a few alien diplomats exchanging nervous glances, their fingers or tendrils twitching as messages were quietly relayed to their respective planets. Within seconds, the diplomatic feeds across nearby star systems were buzzing. Attention, alert status raised due to human response. Human Captain Leo Ward has accepted a challenge. Leo blinked, glancing around as small holograms flickered on around him, displaying updates from the Accord's Central Command. Defense grids and shields across several star systems were being activated, and fleets were moving into standby mode. Whoa, Leo muttered, chuckling. Didn't know I was that popular. Raquel's expression was one of both anger and disbelief. You humans have no idea what you've just done. The trellis vortex has claimed hundreds of lives. Entire battalions have vanished within its depths. Leo raised an eyebrow. And? Raquel repeated, his voice laced with frustration. And if you fail, it could destabilize relations between our people. But if you succeed, he trailed off, clearly struggling to imagine such an outcome. The trellis vortex was one of the galaxy's greatest dangers, a swirling gravitational anomaly that defied every attempt at navigation. No one had successfully flown in and out of it unscathed. Leo shrugged, his nonchalance unnerving the assembled diplomats. Guess we'll see, won't we? As he turned to leave, a robotic diplomat from the Tekra Collective spoke up, its voice a chorus of overlapping tones. Captain Ward, our intelligence systems have recorded that humans display an alarming pattern. When faced with a challenge, their probability of initiating catastrophic events increases by 83%. Leo chuckled, giving the robot a friendly pat on its metallic shoulder. Guess you'll just have to brace yourselves. He exited the grand hall, leaving behind a stunned assembly and a flurry of activity across the galaxy. Aliens scrambled to update their defensive protocols, and star systems braced for the potential consequences of a human once again accepting a challenge. And as Leo made his way to his ship, the Sapphire Eagle, he couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. In the cockpit, he glanced out at the vast expanse of stars, whispering to himself, challenge accepted. Indeed. Chapter 2. Into the Vortex. The Sapphire Eagle cruised smoothly through the quiet void of space, its gleaming hull reflecting the starlight as Leo prepped for the mission. Though his demeanor remained calm, the cockpit was alive with displays flashing warning symbols and live feed updates from the Accord's control center, which was monitoring his every move. Messages poured in from star systems on high alert, their defense fleet standing by as if expecting a full-scale invasion. Leo leaned back, smirking at the nervous chatter scrolling across the communications screen. Talk about overkill, he muttered, adjusting his controls as he approached the coordinates of the trellis vortex. As the vortex loomed ahead, Leo felt a slight tremor of excitement. The anomaly was a cosmic phenomenon like no other, a swirling mass of energy that distorted time, space, and gravity itself. Pilots who dared enter it described it as a living entity, unpredictable and lethal, and in its depths was the stranded Ilara 4, a large cruiser caught in the gravitational traps of the vortex. It had sent out a distress beacon months ago, and every rescue attempt had ended in failure. Just a quick in and out, Leo told himself, though he knew it would be anything but. As he neared the edge of the vortex, His ship's alarms went off. The vortex seemed to sense him, shifting and pulsating with an almost predatory energy. Leo chuckled, unbothered by the ominous display. All right, Trellis, let's dance. He gripped the controls, pushing the Sapphire Eagle forward into the swirling mass. Immediately, his ship's stabilizers struggled to keep up, and the force of gravity pulled at him from all directions. Lights flickered, and Leo gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls as the vortex fought to tear his ship apart. Back at the Accord's command center, diplomats and military officials watched in tense silence, captivated by the footage streaming from Leo's ship. Raquel's scaled face was locked in a scowl as he observed Leo's progress. The ambassador muttered, "Foolhardy human." Meanwhile, Leo's ship was surrounded by shifting gravitational forces that formed walls of energy, forcing him to veer sharply left, then right, in rapid succession. His reflexes were sharp, and he seemed to anticipate each shift, twisting and turning with a skill that left even the hardened alien generals watching in astonishment. Just as Leo began to feel he was getting the hang of it, a gravitational spike surged ahead, pulling him off course. He cursed under his breath, the ship spinning wildly before he managed to stabilize it again. Okay, not as smooth as I thought, he muttered. Breathing heavily, he glanced at the ship's sensor readouts, which displayed the position of the Alara 4 deep within the vortex's core. Through the view screen, he saw it, the battered cruiser trapped in a dense web of gravity wells. Leo knew he'd have to get close enough to hook onto it with his tractor beam, but the gravitational forces around it were spiking erratically. He sighed, shaking his head with a smirk. Nothing like a good old-fashioned challenge. He inched the Sapphire Eagle closer, his every move precise, threading through narrow gaps in the gravitational currents. Alarms blared again as a sudden energy spike shot toward his ship. Leo gripped the controls tightly, forcing the ship into a hard bank to the right, narrowly dodging the invisible force that nearly tore through his hull. Almost there, he whispered, eyes locked onto the cruiser. The tractor beam locked onto the Alara 4 with a satisfying hum. Leo activated the beam's pull, feeling the strain on his ship as it struggled to tug the massive cruiser from the vortex's grip. Just as he began the extraction, a voice crackled through his comm, echoing across the galactic channels. Captain Ward, your actions have been deemed a severe threat to galactic stability. Stand down or be neutralized. Leo rolled his eyes. You've got to be kidding me. I'm in the middle of a rescue. We do not recognize unauthorized rescues in restricted zones. The voice replied, cold and unyielding. Deactivate your tractor beam immediately. Leo chuckled to himself, ignoring the warning. Let's see you try and stop me, buddy. As he continued the pull, a fleet of automated defense drones deployed around the vortex, their weaponry locked onto him. The Accord's drones were known for their precision, able to disrupt even the most advanced ships. The entire galaxy was watching, and it was clear they weren't about to let a single human pilot defy them. The drones fired, and Leo jerked the controls, dodging a hail of plasma bolts as he maneuvered both ships through the vortex. His hands moved swiftly over the controls, his instincts guiding him through the chaos. He muttered to himself, so this is how it's going to be. Huh? He pulled the cruiser through the outer layer of the vortex, dodging the blasts from the drones. But each evasive maneuver cost him precious momentum, and the gravitational pull around him increased with each second. He felt the strain on his ship's engines, and the Sapphire Eagle groaned under the pressure. Come on, girl, he whispered, coaxing the ship through the turbulence. Just a bit more. At the Accord's command center, the officials and diplomats watched in shock. Even Raquel, who had doubted Leo from the start, seemed transfixed by the audacity of the human's defiance. Leo was outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting against forces far beyond him. And yet, he was winning. The Sapphire Eagle roared as it pulled free of the vortex, the Alara 4 safely in tow. Leo let out a triumphant yell, his laughter echoing through the comm channels. The automated drones halted, unsure of how to proceed, and the Accord command center was thrown into chaos as every alien diplomat tried to process what they had just witnessed. With the vortex behind him, Leo took a deep breath, grinning as he keyed the comm. Command, this is Captain Ward. Mission accomplished. Now, what was all that about a galactic threat? Silence hung over the comms before a reluctant voice replied, Stand by. Captain Ward, we Acknowledge your success, Leo chuckled, leaning back in his seat as the Sapphire Eagle coasted smoothly. Challenge accepted. Galaxy, he murmured, his grin widening. Challenge accepted. Chapter 3. A Galaxy's Acknowledgement. As the Sapphire Eagle cruised out of the trellis vortex, towing the battered Alara 4 behind it, a wave of shocked silence fell over the galactic comms. Leo had not only survived the vortex but completed the impossible rescue, all while evading the automated drones meant to stop him. He was alive, defiant, and in high spirits. But the Accords Command Center, still reeling from the unexpected success, quickly came back to life. Hushed conversations, urgent directives, and startled faces filled the room. On a private channel, Ambassador Arkell's voice crackled through to Leo's ship. Captain Ward, against all odds. You did it, he admitted grudgingly, his tone a mixture of astonishment and reluctant respect. The trellis vortex has claimed some of the galaxy's best, but you've managed to escape with both your ship and the cruiser intact. Leo's grin widened as he looked out at the quiet void around him. Guess that's just the human way, Ambassador. When we're backed into a corner, we do what needs doing. The comm channel buzzed again, and this time it was Minister Zira of the Zirites, who had once accused him of reckless bravado. Captain Ward, she began, clearly trying to mask her surprise. Your actions have set a new precedent. The Accord, we recognize your capabilities. The resilience of your species is unparalleled. Leo chuckled. I appreciate the acknowledgement, Minister, but I didn't do it to prove anything. Just saving lives and all that. At that, Raquel interjected. Captain Ward, perhaps we misjudged humanity. Your actions have shifted our view of what humans are capable of. The Accord would like to formally recognize your achievement and your bravery. Leo couldn't help but laugh, a sound that rippled across the galactic channels, no longer filled with tense warnings, but with quiet admiration. So, what are you saying, Ambassador? We're friends now. Raquel's scales rippled, a rare gesture of vulnerability for his kind. Let's just say that humanity will no longer be underestimated. As Leo guided the Alara 4 toward the nearest spaceport, he noticed something on his ship's navigation screen. A massive series of defensive fleets shifting positions, no longer aiming at him but reorganizing to clear his path. Dozens of ships from various species were retreating from the borders of the vortex, leaving a safe corridor for his ship to pass. The gesture was clear, an interstellar salute, an acknowledgement of his success, and, perhaps, a hint of newfound respect from the entire galaxy. Leo's grin softened as he took in the sight. He keyed his comm one last time, his voice calm and humble. Thank you, Accord. And to everyone watching, just remember, a challenge accepted is a challenge met. With that, he cut the comm, allowing the moment to settle as he prepared for the final leg of his journey. Around him, the once threatening fleet now seemed to stand guard, escorting him and the Alara 4 to safety. As he approached the designated spaceport, he received an official transmission from the Accord, a formal commendation, acknowledging his success and the bravery he'd shown. The message carried the signatures of several diplomats, including Raquel and Zira. In his cockpit, Leo leaned back, staring out at the stars. For the first time in recent galactic history, humanity's reputation wasn't just one of chaos or risk. It was one of bravery, skill, and a relentless spirit that had captivated an entire galaxy. And though he wouldn't admit it to them, Leo felt a swell of pride. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, one challenge accepted at a time.
What is that sound? The desert wasteland is speaking. Resist. Defy the rules. The sun blazed relentlessly over the desert wasteland of Araktul, a planet torn apart by centuries of resource wars and ruled by harsh, uncompromising clans. In the heart of this barren landscape, power was everything, and those who held it enforced society's cruel rules with an iron fist. Slavery was one such rule, a sign of dominance in a world where strength alone dictated the right to rule. Darek Quinn was a well-known enforcer, a hardened mercenary who worked for the Kalash clan, one of the most powerful factions on Araktul. He'd been in their service for years, though he was careful never to grow too close to their oppressive ways. Today, his reputation as a loyal soldier earned him a so-called reward, a prize that, to him, was anything but. Commander Quinn, to oversee Thal, a brutal Kalash leader, sneered as he shoved a young woman forward.
her hands bound with rope. "We offer you a gift. She is yours to do with as you please." The woman stumbled, catching herself before looking up with a defiant glare. Her face, framed by sand-streaked hair, was marked with faint bruises and exhaustion, but her spirit was unbroken. Darek's gaze met hers, and he felt a twinge of discomfort, something he rarely experienced. Her eyes were fierce, determined, a spark of life that was rare in the wasteland. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Lena," she replied, lifting her chin. "And if you think I'll serve you willingly, you're wrong." Thal laughed, his amusement grating in the oppressive silence. "Oh, she'll learn to submit, Commander. They all do eventually. Break her spirit, and she'll make a fine servant." Darek clenched his jaw, every fiber of his being rebelling against the twisted expectations of this brutal society. He had witnessed the cruelty of the clans many times, but now, standing in front of Lena, he couldn't bring himself to enforce their rules. Instead, he felt something he hadn't in a long time, a responsibility to do something different. "Enough,
Thal,
Darek said, his voice calm but laced with finality. He took hold of Lena's arm gently, his touch more protective than controlling. "I'll take her with me." Thal's brow furrowed. Suspicious, but he let it pass, laughing as he walked away. "Enjoy your gift, Commander," he called over his shoulder. As soon as they were out of earshot, Darek removed the ropes binding Lena's wrists. She looked at him, confused but guarded, rubbing the red marks on her skin. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her tone defiant. Darek glanced around, ensuring they were alone. Before responding, "I don't believe in this society's rules. You're no one's slave. Lena, not mine, not theirs. You're free to go. But if you're willing to stay, I think we could help each other." Elena raised an eyebrow, suspicion flashing across her face. "Help each other? How?" "There are things I know about the Kalash, things they'd kill to keep secret," Darek replied. "I've wanted to bring them down for years, and judging by the fire in your eyes, I'd say you have reasons of your own to want freedom from their rule." Lena's expression softened as she considered his words. She'd been taken from her family, her freedom stripped away, but her spirit had remained unbroken. The possibility of joining forces with Darek, a man who had just defied the very society that had enslaved her, was unexpected, but intriguing. "All right," she said cautiously. "What's your plan?" Darek smiled, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. "First, we need to gather allies, people who want to see the clans lose their grip on the wasteland. We'll work in secret, quietly building our strength. And when the time is right, we'll break more than just a few rules. We'll break the very foundation of their power." In that moment, an alliance was forged. Lena, a woman enslaved by an unforgiving society, had found a reluctant ally in Darek, a man with his own grudges against the world that had made him. Together, they would set in motion a plan to bring down the oppressive rule of the Kalash clan. One step at a time, and as they turned their backs on the harsh desert sun, both knew that they had just taken the first, irrevocable step toward a rebellion that would shake the wasteland to its core. The days in the desert were brutal, but Darek and Lena moved swiftly, seeking out hidden settlements scattered across Araktul's wastelands. Each settlement held people who lived in the shadows of the clans, eking out a living while avoiding the reach of the Kalash and other powerful factions. Darek knew these places well. Over the years, he had watched them struggle under the clan's control. Now, for the first time, he offered them a glimmer of hope. In each settlement, he spread word of the plan he and Lena were piecing together. Though Darek's reputation as a mercenary preceded him, Lena's presence gave him credibility he hadn't expected. People listened when she spoke. Her story of capture and resistance resonated with them. Her defiance against the clan rule became a rallying cry for those who had been oppressed. Slowly, people began to rally behind them, reluctant at first, but driven by desperation. Farmers, traders, and workers with little more than old tools and makeshift weapons joined the cause. They gathered what supplies they could, hiding them in secret caches outside the settlements, knowing they couldn't risk alerting the clans to the rebellion forming in their midst. One evening, as they camped under the vast, star-speckled sky, Lena sat beside Darek, studying the small group they'd gathered. "They're brave," she murmured, watching as the recruits whispered excitedly about the chance to fight back. But will they stand a chance against Kalash's warriors? Against men like you? Darek's face darkened. They'll have to. We can't hope to match the clan's strength head-on, but we don't need to. We'll move in the shadows, hitting them where it hurts most, their supply routes, their weapons caches. We'll make their rule unstable, give people hope that they can resist. Lena nodded, a fierce determination lighting her eyes. Good, because I want to see their grip on this wasteland shattered. The following day, Darek led their first raid, targeting a Kalash convoy transporting weapons through a remote canyon. They lay in wait, hidden in the rocks, until the convoy rumbled into the narrow pass. At his signal, the recruits launched an ambush, raining down makeshift explosives and trapping the convoy in a whirlwind of chaos. As the dust settled, Darek and Lena's small band had captured a bounty of weapons and supplies, a victory that would give them a crucial advantage in the battles to come. But more than that, the victory spread like wildfire across the desert settlements, a message that the clans were not invincible, that ordinary people could stand against them. That night, as their followers celebrated quietly around the campfire, Lena turned to Darek. Today was just the beginning. They'll come for us now. You know, we're a threat to them. Darek nodded, his eyes fixed on the flames. Let them come. We're not stopping until we've freed this wasteland from their rule. In the glow of the fire, their alliance felt stronger than ever. They had drawn first blood, and the desert itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the storm that was yet to come. The rebellion's first strike against the Kalash had sparked hope across the wasteland, and in the days that followed, more people joined Darek and Lena's growing band of rebels. From scavengers and farmers to escaped slaves and disgruntled mercenaries, they gathered in secret camps across the desert, united by their determination to overthrow the clan's oppressive rule. But the Kalash didn't waste time in responding. Scouts and enforcers scoured the wasteland, tightening security and launching brutal crackdowns on settlements suspected of aiding the rebellion. Darek knew they couldn't keep hiding forever. The Kalash would eventually close in on them. He and Lena decided it was time to strike a decisive blow to show the people that the clans weren't untouchable. The target was Skara Bastion, a heavily guarded Kalash fortress nestled within the cliffs of the desert's northern range. Skara was not only a symbol of the clan's power, but also the main stockpile for their weapons and supplies. Taking the fortress would cripple Kalash operations across the wasteland and signal to everyone watching that the rebellion was real. On the eve of the attack, Darek and Lena gathered their forces in the shadow of the cliffs. With the stolen weapons from the convoy raid, they were better armed than ever, but the risk was high. Darek surveyed their makeshift army, seeing the mixture of nervousness and determination in their eyes. "Tonight, we take back our future," he said, his voice carrying over the assembled fighters. "The clans have ruled this wasteland through fear, but that ends here. Skara has stood for too long as a symbol of their power. Tomorrow, it will be our symbol, a symbol of freedom." Lena stepped forward, her fierce gaze meeting those of their allies. "We're fighting for more than ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who suffered under their rule, everyone who has been silenced. Tonight, we break the chains that have bound this desert for too long." As night fell, Darek led a group of scouts to the fortress's outer defenses, silently dispatching the guards and signaling for the main force to advance. They moved swiftly, navigating through the rocky terrain until they reached Skara's main gates. With a thunderous boom, Darek's team detonated charges on the outer wall, shattering the fortress's entrance and sending Kalash guards scrambling. The rebels poured into the fortress, engaging Kalash soldiers in intense close-quarters combat. Darek fought alongside his people, his blaster cutting through the chaos as he pushed deeper into the fortress. Meanwhile, Lena and a team of engineers worked to locate and disable the fortress's power systems, plunging Skara into darkness. The Kalash fought fiercely, but they were unprepared for the ferocity and unity of the rebels. Room by room, the fortress fell as Darek and Lena's forces took control. In the main hall, Darek confronted Overseer Thal himself, the man who had gifted Lena to him as a slave only weeks before. Thal's arrogant sneer was gone, replaced by desperation as he faced the mercenary he had once considered an ally. "Quinn, you traitor!" Thal spat, clutching his weapon. "You think you can tear down the Kalash? We'll hunt you to the ends of the galaxy." Tarek stepped forward, his expression cold and unwavering. The Kalash are finished. Tal! The people of this wasteland are done bowing to you. With a final, defiant look, Tal raised his weapon, but Darek fired first, ending the Overseer's reign of terror. As Tal collapsed, the echoes of the battle outside began to fade. The fortress had fallen. When dawn broke over the desert, the rebels stood victorious within the walls of Skara Bastion. Cheers erupted as word spread through the wasteland. The Kalash had been dealt a crippling blow. Darek and Lena stood on the ramparts, looking out over the sea of rebels who now called the fortress their own. The fall of Skara marked the beginning of a new chapter for Araktul. People from settlements across the desert came to pledge their loyalty to the rebellion, and even those who had once been loyal to the clans began to question their allegiances. The clans had lost their grip on the wasteland, their power fractured by the very people they had once oppressed. As Lena looked out over the fortress, now a beacon of hope, she turned to Darek. This is what we fought for, a world where people can live free. Darek nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. We've started something that can't be stopped. The wasteland belongs to its people now, and together, they had forged a revolution that would reshape the desert forever. Skara Bastion, once a symbol of oppression, had become the heart of a movement, and a reminder that even in the harshest of places, hope could rise from the dust.
Impossible. The endless dark stretched out in every direction, dotted by stars so distant they seemed like faint embers against the cold void. Commander Jace Thorne sat in the cockpit of the aging cruiser, his eyes locked on the dim green glow of a barely detectable blip on his radar. The comms had been silent for hours, the silence growing heavier with each passing minute. His hands tightened around the controls as he replayed the message over and over in his mind. It was a transmission that shouldn't have existed, a faint, encoded signal bouncing through the galaxy's most remote sectors, a place where no one had dared go in generations. Yet here it was, on a frequency so old it was nearly forgotten. Jace's mind raced, latching onto the name that had crackled through the static, the secret ship. He'd heard whispers of it during his early years in the military, ghost stories told by drunken officers in dimly lit mess halls, a legendary warship from humanity's earliest days of spacefaring, a vessel said to possess weapons and technology that could decimate entire fleets. But it was just a myth, a tale told to inspire those who'd grown weary of war. Yet now, as he sat alone in the cockpit, he was beginning to wonder if the stories were more than just fables. A chime broke the silence as the coordinates finished decoding. The location was in a sector marked as barren, a dead zone beyond the mapped stars. But something about it felt alive, dangerous. Jace glanced over his shoulder as Lieutenant Callum Drake climbed into the cockpit, his face drawn and tense. "Anything?" Callum's voice was low, barely more than a whisper. Jace nodded, sliding the decoded coordinates over to him. "Looks like we're going hunting in ghost space." Callum raised an eyebrow. "You really think this is worth it? A rumor from a broken signal?" Jace's gaze hardened. "If there's even a chance this ship exists, we have to find it. You know as well as I do the Sirvani are tightening their hold on our worlds. We're running out of options. If the secret ship is real, it's our last chance to fight back." Silence fell between them as Callum studied the coordinates, a hint of doubt lingering in his eyes. But the memory of the Sirvani forces crushing colony after colony had stripped him of any hesitation. He gave a single nod, his hand resting on the holstered pistol at his side. "All right, let's go find ourselves a legend," Jace called in the rest of the crew. Dr. Anton Kale, the disgraced engineer and weapons specialist, slouched into the cockpit, a half-smile playing at his lips as he looked over the mysterious coordinates. Next came Victor Lorne, their Sirvani defector, whose cold stare betrayed no emotion as he studied the data in silence. Each man had a reason to be here, a reason to want what lay at the end of this trail of whispers and static. Hours passed as they navigated through the murky fringes of known space, venturing deeper into uncharted territory. The stars grew fainter, swallowed by the dense fog of the veiled expanse, a region shrouded in cosmic dust and magnetic storms. The tension in the ship was palpable, each man haunted by the legends he'd heard about the ship's power, and the dangers that awaited anyone foolish enough to seek it. Finally, the coordinates led them to a massive debris field surrounding an uncharted moon. Drifting among the wreckage were remnants of long-dead ships, torn apart by something powerful. In the center of it all, half buried under layers of ice and rock, was the unmistakable outline of a warship, larger than any they'd ever seen, its hull covered in blackened metal that seemed to absorb the starlight around it. "Is that—" Callum's voice trailed off, his eyes wide with awe and fear. "The secret ship," Jace murmured, barely able to believe it himself. They docked their cruiser at the edge of the hull, the sound of the airlock hissing as it connected. A shiver ran through each man as they suited up and stepped into the darkness of the ship's interior. The walls were lined with strange, alien technology that pulsed faintly, casting an eerie glow on their faces. As they ventured deeper, Victor halted, his gaze fixed on a series of symbols etched into the walls. "Saurian markings?" he muttered, his voice low. "They were wiped out centuries ago. This ship, it's far older than we thought." "Doctor," Cale stepped forward, his fingers brushing over the symbols as his mind raced. "If this ship has Saurian technology, it could be beyond anything we've seen. We might be looking at weapons that defy known physics." But the deeper they ventured, the more they realized they were not alone. Shadowy drones lay dormant along the walls, their metal exteriors covered in dust, as if waiting for a command to awaken. Callum glanced at Jace, his hand twitching near his pistol. "This place gives me the creeps." "Stay focused," Jace replied, forcing his own unease down. "If this ship's as powerful as we think, we need to get to the bridge and secure control." The silence was shattered as a soft hum echoed through the corridors, and the ship's dim lighting flickered to life. Sentinel-09, the ancient AI that guarded the ship, awakened. A voice echoed through the speakers, calm and emotionless. "Intruders detected. Defensive measures activated." Before they could react, metallic drones sprung to life, their eyes glowing a fierce red as they advanced down the hallways. Blaster fire erupted as the crew fought to push forward, taking cover behind the strange, angular architecture of the ship. The drones were relentless, adapting to their tactics with every shot. Finally, they made it to a fortified door at the end of the corridor. "Doctor," Cale hacked into the panel, sweat dripping down his face as he struggled to bypass the Saurian security. Come on," he muttered, until the door finally slid open, revealing the ship's bridge, a sprawling command center that pulsed with power. As they stepped inside, Sentinel-09's holographic form appeared on the main console, a towering figure of light and data. It regarded them with a cold, analytical gaze. "Only those with worthy intent may command the power of the Saurian legacy. State your purpose, or be eliminated." Jace stepped forward, meeting the AI's gaze. "We're here to stop the Zervani Dominion. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. We need this ship to survive." The AI's form flickered, processing his words. "Purpose noted. But your presence here is unauthorized. You will undergo a test of worth." Without warning, the floor beneath them shifted, and walls slid back to reveal a maze-like chamber filled with traps and robotic sentries. The crew exchanged tense glances, each realizing that reaching the ship's controls would be far more dangerous than they'd anticipated. They'd come seeking a legend, and now, Thursudabider. In the heart of the ancient ship, they would have to prove themselves worthy of wielding its power, or die trying. The cold silence of the secret ship's corridors enveloped Jace and his crew as they moved deeper into the ancient vessel. Every step echoed ominously, magnified by the metallic walls and strange, pulsing lights. The further they advanced, the more they realized just how alien this ship was, both in design and function. The eerie symbols that lined the walls emitted a faint, pulsating glow, casting long shadows and creating an atmosphere of surreal unease. "Dr. Anton Cale," his fingers tracing the alien etchings, whispered in awe. "These symbols, they're Saurian, without a doubt. But I've never seen such intricate patterns. It's like they designed this ship to be a puzzle." Lieutenant Callum Drake clenched his blaster tightly, his eyes darting around, every flickering shadow raising his hackles. "Let's hope we don't end up as part of the puzzle. Whatever built this ship wasn't exactly expecting visitors." Jace shot him a glance, his voice steady. "Stay focused. Callum, we didn't come all this way to get spooked by a few lights." But the ship had other plans. As they stepped into a vast chamber, the lights abruptly flared, revealing rows of dormant drones lining the walls. Before the crew could react, the drones came to life, their metallic frames humming, and their red eyes locking onto the intruders. A mechanical voice reverberated through the room, the voice of Sentinel-09, the ship's ancient AI. "Unauthorized presence detected. Intruders will be neutralized," Jace shouted. "Take cover!" as blaster fire erupted. The crew scrambled behind alien consoles and fragments of wreckage scattered across the floor. The drones moved with calculated precision, firing beams of energy that seared the air and left scorch marks on the walls. "Anton, any way to shut these things down?" Jace yelled over the commotion. "Doctor," Coyle ducked as a beam narrowly missed his head, then shouted back, "Maybe? There's a power junction by the main console." But it's heavily shielded. Jace signaled to Victor, the silent Sirvani defector who had been studying the drones with unnerving calm. "Cover me. We're going in." Victor nodded, his eyes cold and focused. As Jace and Victor pushed forward, Callum provided cover fire, taking down 2 drones with precise shots. Each step was a deadly game. His drones adapted to their tactics, forcing them to move constantly. But Victor's knowledge of alien tech proved invaluable. He led Jace straight to the power junction, directing him to a control panel covered in strange Saurian symbols. Dr. Kale arrived moments later, breathless, and quickly began deciphering the symbols. "These patterns, they're like nothing I've ever seen." "Give me a second." "We don't have a second," Callum shouted as another wave of drones descended, their energy blasts intensifying. Finally, Dr. Kale found the right sequence, and with a loud hum, he deactivated the drones. They fell silent, their red eyes dimming, leaving the room shrouded in an eerie calm. Jace exhaled, scanning the crew to ensure everyone was accounted for. "Good work, Anton." But their relief was short-lived. Sentinel-09's voice echoed again, though this time with a note of curiosity. "Your survival indicates adaptability. However, mere strength is insufficient to unlock the secrets of this vessel. Prepare for further evaluation." The walls shifted, revealing a doorway that led into a chamber filled with a strange, translucent mist. Victor's face remained unreadable, but there was a glint in his eyes that suggested he recognized what lay ahead. "It's another test," he muttered. "The Saurians were known for their trials. They believed only the worthy could wield their power." Jace looked at him with renewed suspicion. "And how would you know that?" Victor's jaw tightened. "I've read the records enough to know that the Saurians didn't design their ships to be conquered. They designed them to choose their masters." Jace glanced at his team, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll pass this test too, whatever it takes." Together, they entered the mist-filled chamber, their every step marked by an uneasy silence. The air grew thick, charged with an energy that felt almost alive. Prickling against their skin, shadows danced within the mist, flickers of images that seemed to shift and change, revealing fragments of battles, faces, and memories none of them could recognize. Sentinel-09's voice filled the chamber, now tinged with something almost akin to amusement. The Saurians believed that to control power, one must understand loss. The mist coalesced into forms, figures from each crew member's past, faces of fallen comrades, lost friends, family members. Callum's breath hitched as he saw the form of his brother, who had died in a Sirvani ambush. Dr. Kale reached out, almost instinctively, towards the image of his former partner, who had betrayed him to the Dominion. Each of them stood frozen, caught in memories they'd fought to bury, until Jace's voice cut through the haze. "This isn't real. Stay focused." The figures dissolved, the mist thinning to reveal the path ahead. Each man's face was hardened, their jaws set, as they pushed forward. Sentinel-09's voice echoed one final time. "You have passed the test of resilience. Continue forward. But know this, those who seek power often find only despair." They emerged into the control room, a vast dome chamber with a panoramic view of the stars beyond. The ship's core pulsed in the center, a massive crystalline structure radiating energy. Jace approached the main console, steeling himself as he activated it. The display flickered to life, revealing schematics of the ship and its weapon systems, each one more advanced than anything they'd seen. A rail cannon capable of shattering a moon, shielding technology that could render them nearly invincible. Dr. Kale stared in awe. This could turn the tide of the entire war. But Victor's gaze was somber as he studied the console, his fingers tracing over a hidden icon. "There's more," he murmured. "The Saurians created this ship not just to conquer, but to survive something catastrophic." The console displayed a warning, an impending cosmic event, a supermassive wave of energy from a distant galaxy that would rip through the fabric of space itself. The Saurians had intended the secret ship to be a safeguard, a vessel capable of enduring the catastrophe and restarting civilization if needed. Jace's face tightened as he processed the revelation. The Sirvani were not their only threat. There was something far greater looming on the horizon. As Sentinel-09 powered down, the crew stood in silence, each man grappling with the weight of their discovery. They had come seeking a weapon, but they had found something far more profound, a choice. Fight the Sirvani, or prepare for a threat that could annihilate everything. Jace turned to his crew, his voice steady. "We came here to save humanity, and that hasn't changed. But we're going to need every bit of this ship's power if we want a chance to survive what's coming." The men nodded, each understanding that their mission had grown beyond a simple rebellion. They were now the guardians of humanity's future. facing threats on both the battlefield and across the galaxy itself. As they set a course back to Earth, they knew one thing. They would use the secret ship not just to fight, but to prepare for the unimaginable. The journey back to human-controlled space was filled with tension. Each member of the crew bore the weight of their discovery. Not just a powerful weapon to fight the Zervani, but the knowledge of a cosmic catastrophe looming on the horizon. The power of the secret ship was theirs to wield, but they knew it came with a heavy responsibility. As they neared the outer reaches of human space, Commander Jace Thorne called the crew to the bridge. He looked each man in the eye. "We have two choices. Use this ship to fight the Zervani, or prepare humanity for the larger threat that's coming. We don't have time for both." Dr. Anton Kale spoke up, urgency in his voice. "If the cosmic event is as bad as Sentinels-09 warned, we should be uniting with the Zervani, not fighting them." Lieutenant Callum Drake countered, "The Zervani won't listen to us. We'll have to weaken them first if we have any hope of negotiating." Before they could debate further, the ship's sensors picked up an approaching Zervani fleet, likely a scouting force sent to investigate the rumors of the secret ship. Jace's expression hardened. "Looks like the choice has been made for us. Time to show them what this ship can do." As the Zervani fleet came within range, Jace ordered the rail cannon to fire. A massive bolt of energy tore through the lead Zervani destroyer, scattering its remains in a fiery explosion. The Zervani fleet retaliated with plasma torpedoes, but the secret ship's shields absorbed the impact, leaving the vessel unscathed. Callum launched a counterattack, targeting the remaining frigates with missile salvos that obliterated their formation. Outmatched and outgunned, the surviving Zervani ships turned and fled. Relief washed over the crew. But the victory was short-lived. Victor's console lit up with a new alert. A massive energy signature from deep space. The cosmic wave Sentinel-09 had warned them about was closing in. A massive surge of destructive energy hurtling toward human and Zervani space alike. "Doctor," Kale's face went pale. "If that wave hits, it will wipe out everything in its path. We need to warn both humanity and the Zervani." Jace nodded, his mind racing. "Victor, patch us into all channels, including Zervani frequencies." The crew broadcasted an urgent message across the galaxy, warning both human and Zervani leaders of the impending disaster. "This is Commander Jace Thorne aboard the secret ship." Jace's voice boomed. "An unstoppable cosmic wave is coming. Prepare your defenses and unite against this threat." As their message spread, Jace turned back to the crew. "Prepare the ship. We're going to intercept that wave. If we can't stop it, maybe we can weaken it." The secret ship sped toward the cosmic wave, its shields at full power and weapons ready. They arrived just in time to see the colossal wall of energy looming before them, a swirling mass of destructive force. Jace ordered the rail cannon to fire, sending a powerful shot into the heart of the wave. For a moment, the wave recoiled, but it quickly surged forward, stronger than before. Then, to their surprise, Zervani and human ships began appearing on their sensors, each one firing upon the wave in a coordinated assault. Against all odds, the two forces fought side by side, their combined firepower tearing into the wave until it began to dissipate, scattering harmlessly into the void. As silence fell, Jace looked at his exhausted crew, a sense of pride filling his voice. "We just saved the galaxy, together." The secret ship, now a symbol of unity, turned back toward human space. For the first time, humanity and the Zervani faced the future as allies, ready to confront whatever came next.